My husband's illness forced me to visit his workplace. For the first time to request leave on his behalf. The receptionist stared at me in disbelief. Are you serious? The man you're describing. He owns this company. Our boss and his wife come and leave together every day. Unless you're not his wife. Seconds later, my supposedly sick husband walked out of the elevator. Arm in arm with his high school sweetheart. Our eyes met and his smile vanished. Seeing him in designer clothes. I burst into bitter laughter. One of your suits cost more than my yearly salary. Yet you pretended to be a low-paid clerk. You started your business with my dowry. Lied about being broke. And I worked myself to the bone to help pay off debts. Even when I was ill, why did you deceive me like this? He stammered, speechless. Sweetheart answered before he could. It's simple, he promised to wait for me. Everything he has, company, career, is mine, so he has nothing to give you. I realized my husband had hidden not only his identity, but also a lifetime vow to another woman. Yet I was still married to Stephen Condon. Could he really give me nothing? Stephen reached out to touch my shoulder. But I jerked away, his hand hung in the air as he sighed. Honey, listen. I loved the feeling of living a simple life with you. Really, I never meant to keep it from you forever. I was planning to tell you the truth soon. Soon, 8 years, Stephen. We've been married for 8 years. Isn't that long enough? I asked again. My voice trembling. Or did you think I was dumb enough to be fooled forever? He reached for me again. That's not it, Sonny. I backed away, my heels unsteady because they were worn out. But I had never been able to bring myself to replace them. My gaze fell on Genevieve Bell. Who was wearing glittering heels, a cashmere coat and carrying an Hermes bag. I had only ever dared to glance at those in the shop window. I had joked to Stephen, when you're rich, buy me an Hermes, too. He had laughed and ruffled my hair. I will, and I'll buy you two. One to carry, one to wear. It turned out he had bought one but for someone else. I fought back the bitterness and asked him with a laugh. That's not it, then what about her? Stephen glanced at Genevieve. Genevieve is just a friend. Genevieve's mouth turned down immediately. Stephen. Stephen pulled her close, gave her a look and then turned back to me. Don't worry, if I had something going on with Genevieve, you'd be the last to know. She's just divorced and a little emotionally unstable. I'm just taking care of her. She loves to joke around, those words were just to tease you. Don't take them to heart, Sonny. Trust me, trust. I remembered the first year of our marriage. When he first failed at business and owed $500,000. The day the creditors came to the door. He squatted in the corner with his head in his hands. Apologizing to me, I held him and told him it was okay. We would pay it back together. That night, I took out the dowry card my mother had given me. It had $200,000 in it, all my security. I put the card in his hand and said, take this money and we'll figure out the rest together. I believe in you, he cried in my arms for a long time, promising he would never betray my love. Apparently, not betraying me meant 8 years of deception. I heard myself laughing, but my face was wet. Stephen, look me in the eyes and say it again. You're just friends. He opened his mouth. His Adam's apple bobbing, but no sound came out. The silence was more cruel than any answer. I knew I didn't need to ask anything more. I took a deep breath and wiped away my tears. Stephen, let's get a divorce. That's 8 words, $1 million a word. Buy out our marriage so you can be with her. It's a bargain, right? Stephen seemed genuinely panicked. Sonny, calm down. Let's talk about this at home. I interrupted him. Are you talking about the old apartment with the peeling wallpaper? That costs $700 a month? I almost laughed. Expression changed and he reached for me. Don't make a scene here, it's not a good look. Let go, I said through gritted teeth. He wouldn't. Not until you promise me you'll come home and talk this through. See, in us pulling at each other. Genevieve said softly, Sonny. If I were you, I'd be grateful. A wife's title is what many women want. If you think Stephen is giving you too little money, I can make him give you 5,000. No, 8,000 more a month. That should be enough for your expenses, right? Don't be too extravagant, the words hurt more than a slap in the face. I thought of the countless days I had spent pinching pennies. Toilet paper I stocked up on when it was on sale at the supermarket. The second-hand clothes I bought online. The messy haircuts I gave myself. A sense of humiliation washed over me. One hand was gripped tightly by Stephen. But with the other, I gathered all my strength and slapped Genevieve's self-righteous face. Clear sound was deafeningly loud in the lobby. Time seemed to stop, a few seconds later. Genevieve seemed to realize what had happened. Covering her face, her eyes red and screaming, "Stephen." She hit me, it hurts. Even reacted almost instantly. He pushed me away and I stumbled backward. My lower back hit the sharp corner of the reception desk. A burst of pain, before I could steady myself. He reached for me again. "Sonny. Are you crazy?" He roared. Grabbed my shoulders and pushed me hard. The world spun, my head hit the corner of a marble table heavily. Making a dull sound, excruciating pain shot through the back of my head. And I reached back and touched it. It was bleeding. I leaned on the table. Barely able to stand, my vision was blurred. But I could see him cradling Genevieve's face. Examining her carefully. "It hurts, Stephen." "It hurts," Genevieve said softly. Stephen patted her back gently like a child. It's okay. I'm here." Then he looked up and roared at the receptionist, who was standing there stunned. "Are you blind? Can't. Did you see Genevieve is hurt? Get an ice pack now." The young receptionist trembled and hurried to find an ice pack. Blood trickled down my neck into my collar. Sticky and warm before turning cold. It was so cold, my whole body was cold. Stephen finally turned to look at me. "Go home, I need to take Genevieve to the hospital. We'll talk about this another day." My vision was fading, but I tried to make my voice heard. "Even from today on, we're even." He froze. "What, you think 8 million is too much? Fine. Your debt to me for my dowry. For my 8 years of youth. For the blood I'm shedding. I'll get it back penny by penny in court. And the marital property. Including the company he started with my money. The profits over the years. The house, car and jewelry. He bought her everything. I would take back what was mine." Genevieve suddenly looked up. "You're dreaming." I didn't answer but turned and walked toward the door. Every step was a stabbing pain in the back of my head. Every step, blood flowed. But my back was straight. People can fall. But they can't bend. As for whether it was a dream, I didn't need to answer her. I trusted my lawyer would give me the answer. It was completely dark by the time I left the law firm. I endured the headache and went home. When I walked in, I saw an open suitcase in the middle of the living room. Stephen was putting shirts in it and Genevieve was sitting on the couch. "You're back." Stephen looked up at me. His tone is calm, home as if nothing had happened. "Good. I need to talk to you. Genevieve hasn't been feeling well lately. And that slap today made her old injuries flare up. The doctor said she needs someone to take care of her. I'm going to stay there for a few days." I laughed in spite of myself. "You don't need to tell me we're in a divorce. Cooling off period, you can stay wherever you want. You don't need to report to me." He clicked his tongue impatiently. "Sonny, don't be like this. I know you're upset today. But we can talk about our issues later. Genevieve needs me now, needs." He needed me and I was always there. I needed him. And he was with someone else. Was that fair? No. But marriage was never about fairness. It was about willingness. I was willing for 8 years. Now my heart was dead and my love was gone. "Okay," I said, turning and walking into the bedroom. He probably thought I would cry. Make a scene, try to make him stay. But I didn't. I opened the closet and started packing his things. I stopped when I got to the photos. In the frame was our wedding photo. He was smiling so brightly and my eyes were full of light. "Sonny, what are you doing?" He followed me in a hint of panic in his voice. "Aren't you leaving?" I didn't turn around. Just kept tossing things into the suitcase. "I'm helping you pack so you don't have to come back." I said. "It was just a few days." "Then don't ever come back. Take your things and the person who needs you and get out." Genevieve appeared in the bedroom doorway. "Stephen, are you still going with me to the cruise auction tonight? You promised to get me that necklace." "Yes," Stephen answered immediately without even looking at me. "I'll do what I promised." Hearing this, Genevieve looked at me, a smile playing on her lips. "Sonny, I doubt you've ever been to a high-end event like that. Have you? But then again, those places have a lot of rules and they're not suitable for someone as straightforward as Sunny. Stephen turned to explain to me. Sunny, it's not that I don't want to take you. It's just that those events are full of business partners. And you have to be careful about what you say and do. I'm afraid you won't be comfortable. And if you say or do something wrong, you might offend an important client. I interrupted him coldly. Are you finished? He froze. I pointed to the door. If you're finished, then get out. Get out of my apartment, Sunny. This is no. This is mine. I paid the rent. I paid the utilities. I bought the furniture. What have you contributed besides living here for 8 years? He opened his mouth wanting to say something. But in the end, he said nothing. Because what I said was true. The household expenses he gave me for the past 8 years, $5,000 a month, barely covered the rent and basic expenses. I said it wasn't enough, and he told me to save. I saved and he sent lavishly on another woman, calling her just a friend. His tone turned cold. Fine. I'll go, but don't regret it. Get out. The door slammed shut and the room suddenly became quiet. Too quiet, I could hear the hum of the refrigerator. And the beating of my own heart. I slowly squatted down, hugging my knees. Tears fell, hitting the floor. 1 drop, 2 drops. I don't know how long it was before my phone vibrated. I picked it up. It was a photo from an unknown number on the hotel bed. Stephen sleeping, face Genevieve pressed against his chest, giving the camera a victory sign. Below the photo was a line of text. Thank you for your sacrifice. Stared at the photo for a long time. Then I replied, thank you, too, for sending me evidence. The private investigator said that Stephen was careful, and he couldn't find any evidence of physical infidelity. That would make it difficult for me to file for divorce and get more property. Fortunately, now I had it. I didn't sleep. The adrenaline from the pain in my head and the vibration of the phone kept me in a state of hyper-awareness. I saved the photo, then I backed it up to a cloud drive, then I emailed it to myself. I looked at the text again. Thank you for your sacrifice. You're welcome, I whispered to the empty room. My first stop wasn't the lawyer, it was the emergency room. I needed every bruise, every scratch, and specifically the gash on the back of my head documented. Domestic dispute, I told the nurse. She looked at my worn-out heels and my pale face and nodded sympathetically. The medical report was clinical and damning, laceration requiring 4 stitches, signs of concussion, bruising consistent with being pushed. The next morning, I withdrew the last $2,000 from our joint household account, the one Stephen threw crumbs into, and bought a new suit, not a designer piece, but something sharp, tailored, and black. I pulled my hair back to hide the bandage. Then, I walked into the offices of Vance and Sterling. Ethan Vance was known in the city as the Butcher. He didn't handle divorces, he handled corporate severances and high-stakes asset recovery. He was expensive, ruthless, and according to the tabloids, hated liars. Mrs. Condon, Ethan said, not bothering to stand as I entered his glass-walled office. He looked at my clothes, assessing the cost. My retainer is $5,000, you don't look like you have it. I don't, I said, sitting down uninvited, but my husband is Stephen Condon, CEO of Apex Tech. He has hidden assets estimated at $50 million. He built the company using my dowry while pretending to be an impoverished clerk for 8 years. I have proof of the initial funding, proof of the deception, proof of adultery, and a medical report proving physical assault. I slid the folder across the mahogany desk. I don't want a divorce settlement, Mr. Vance, I want a liquidation. Ethan stopped tapping his pen. He opened the folder, saw the photo of the dowry check dated 8 years ago, and then the photo Genevieve had sent me last night. A slow, predatory smile spread across his face. We take 30% of the settlement, he said. Deal, I replied. For the next 3 days, I was a ghost. I didn't answer Stephen's calls, I didn't reply to Genevieve's taunting texts, which ranged from pictures of room service lobster to selfies of her wearing a diamond necklace. Text from Genevieve, he bought it. It's so heavy, my neck hurts, sad you never got to feel this weight. I forwarded the screenshot to Ethan. Ethan, good, keep them coming, we need to prove dissipation of marital assets. On the 4th day, the annual Condon Charity Gala was taking place. This was the event where Stephen was planning to officially introduce Genevieve as his partner to the business world, likely spinning a story about how his marriage had been over for years. I wasn't invited, but as the legal wife and a shareholder by virtue of my dowry investment, I didn't need an invitation. The ballroom of the Ritz was suffocating with the scent of lilies and expensive perfume. I stood at the entrance, wearing a crimson dress I had rented. It was the color of fresh blood. It hugged my frame, revealing a confidence I had forgotten I possessed. Stephen was near the stage, holding a champagne flute, laughing at something a board member said. Genevieve was draped on his arm, wearing a white gown that looked suspiciously bridal. She wore the necklace, a cascade of diamonds. I walked in, the room didn't go silent immediately, but a ripple of whispers started near the door and spread inward. Isn't that? I thought he said she was a recluse. She looks incredible. Stephen turned, his smile dropped, he looked like he'd seen a corpse. Genevieve gripped his arm tighter, her nails digging into his tuxedo. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I walked straight up to them, a waiter offering me a glass of champagne on the way, I took it. Sonny, Stephen hissed, his eyes darting around to see who was watching. What the hell are you doing here? You look ridiculous, go home. Hello, Stephen, hello, Genevieve, I said, my voice projecting perfectly, I just came to see the necklace, it really is beautiful. Genevieve smirked, recovering her composure, it's breathtaking, isn't it? Stephen has such good taste, maybe if you behave, he'll buy you a bracelet, a small one. I smiled, oh, I don't want the necklace, Genevieve, I just wanted to see what my money bought. Stephen grabbed my elbow, lower your voice, we are leaving. No, I said, jerking my arm away, you are. At that moment, 4 men in suits walked into the ballroom, they weren't guests, they were process servers, flanked by 2 uniformed officers. They walked straight to us, the music stopped. Stephen Condon, the lead officer asked. Yes, what is this? Stephen tried to sound authoritative, but his voice cracked. You are served, the man handed him a thick stack of documents, and this is a temporary restraining order regarding the dissipation of assets. All your accounts, including the corporate discretionary fund and your personal holdings, have been frozen as of 5 p.m. today pending an investigation into fraud and embezzlement of marital funds. Frozen? Genevieve shrieked, what do you mean frozen? It means, I said, stepping closer to her, that the necklace you're wearing is evidence, officer? The officer looked at Genevieve, ma'am, if that jewelry was purchased within the last 48 hours with funds from the named accounts, it is considered contested property, you'll need to hand it over. You're joking, she gasped, clutching her throat. Take it off, Genevieve, Stephen said, his face turning a deep shade of purple, don't make a scene. But you promised, she wailed. Take it off. With the entire elite of the city watching, Genevieve had to unclasp the necklace, she threw it into the officer's evidence bag. I stepped close to Stephen, leaning in so only he could hear, 8 years, Stephen, you owe me for every single day. The media fallout was catastrophic. Billionaire faked poverty to wife for a decade. The dowry startup, how Stephen Condon built an empire on lies. Ethan Vance played the press like a fiddle, he released the story of the dowry, he released the photos of the peeling wallpaper apartment contrasted with Stephen's penthouse, the public didn't just see a divorce, they saw a sociopath. Apex Tech stock plummeted, investors hate instability, and they hate CEOs who look like liabilities. 2 weeks later, Stephen showed up at the old apartment, he had a key, but I had changed the locks the day he left, he pounded on the door. Sonny! Open up! We need to talk. I opened the door, leaving the security chain on, he looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, his designer suit was rumpled. Unfreeze the accounts, he demanded, the board is threatening to vote me out, I can't pay the suppliers, Genevieve is she's staying at a hotel and I can't even pay the bill. Genevieve is a smart girl, I said calmly, I'm sure she has other friends. Sonny, please, his voice broke, shifting from anger to the manipulation he used so well, baby, this has gone too far, look, I made a mistake, a huge mistake, but I did it for us, I wanted to surprise you when I made it big, but then I got scared you only loved me for the money. I laughed, a dry, rasping sound, I loved you when we were eating instant noodles, Stephen, I loved you when I scrubbed floors to pay your debts, you didn't hide the money because you were afraid I'd be a gold digger, you hid it because you wanted the power of being the provider without the responsibility of sharing it, you wanted to watch me struggle while you played king. I can change, he pleaded, I'll dump her, I'll sign whatever post-nuptial you want, just stop the lawsuit. I don't want you back, Stephen, I want what's mine. You can't prove the company is yours, that dowry was a gift. It was an investment, I corrected, and I have the recording. His face went pale, what recording? The night you cried in my arms? When I gave you the card? My old phone had a voice memo feature I used to record my grocery lists, I hit record by accident, I have you sobbing, saying, I will use this to build our future, I swear on my life this is a loan I will repay 1,000 times over, Ethan says in the state, that's a verbal contract. Stephen stared at me through the crack in the door, he realized then that the woman he thought was a simple, easily fooled housewife had died the moment he pushed her into that marble table. You're going to ruin me, he whispered. You ruined yourself, I said, and slammed the door. Money has a way of revealing character, lack of money reveals it even faster. With Stephen's assets frozen and his reputation in tatters, the frenzy had vanished, but the biggest blow came from Genevieve. I learned about it during the deposition, we were in a conference room, me, Ethan, Stephen, and his team of sweating lawyers. Stephen looked at his phone during a break and let out a strangled cry. Everything all right? Ethan asked politely. Stephen threw the phone across the table. It was a live stream from a gossip site. Exclusive, Genevieve Bell spotted vacationing in St. Tropez with rival tech mogul, Marcus Thorne. The video showed Genevieve in a bikini, laughing on a yacht. The reporter asked her about Stephen Condon. Genevieve looked at the camera over her sunglasses. Stephen? Oh, that was barely a fling. Honestly, I didn't know he was married. He lied to me too. I'm just a victim in all this. Stephen put his head in his hands. She told me she was going to visit her mother, he mumbled. She took the cash I had in the safe. I felt a twinge of pity, but I crushed it instantly. She did exactly what you taught her to do, Stephen, take the money and run. The legal battle lasted 6 months. Stephen tried to hide assets offshore, but Ethan found them. Stephen tried to argue I contributed nothing to the business, but we brought in forensic accountants who showed that without that initial $200,000, his company would have gone bankrupt in month 2. The judge was a stern woman who had clearly read the file on the domestic assault. The ruling was brutal. Repayment of principal, the $200,000 dowry was to be repaid with interest calculated at the rate of his company's growth, meaning that initial stake was now valued at $12 million. Division of assets, since the business was started during the marriage with marital funds, I was entitled to 50% of his shares. Damages, punitive damages for fraud and emotional distress, plus medical costs. Stephen retained the title of CEO, but I was now the majority shareholder. I owned him. After the gavel banged, Stephen didn't move. He sat in his chair, staring at the wood grain. I walked over to him. I'm keeping the shares, I said, which means I'm your boss now. He looked up, eyes red. What are you going to do? Fire me? No, that would be too easy. You're good at making money, Stephen. I want you to keep working, but every time you walk into that office, every time you sign a check, every time you look at the company logo, you'll know it belongs to the woman you called stupid. You work for me now. 3 years later. I walked into the Apex Tech headquarters. The receptionist, a new one, jumped to her feet. Good morning, Ms. Summers. I had taken my maiden name back. Good morning, Jessica. I took the private elevator to the top floor. I wasn't wearing worn-out heels anymore. I was wearing Louboutins, and I had 2 Hermes bags, one for my laptop, and one just because I could. I entered the boardroom. Stephen was there, presenting the quarterly figures. He looked older, the arrogance was gone, replaced by a nervous, twitchy energy. He wore off-the-rack suits now because the alimony payments and the garnish on his wages to pay off the judgment left him with a middle-class income. He stopped speaking when I entered. Continue, I said, taking the seat at the head of the table. He cleared his throat. Profits are up 12%. Good, I said, then we can increase the charitable donation to the women's shelter this year. After the meeting, Stephen lingered. Sonny, he said. Miss Summers, I corrected, not looking up from my iPad. Miss Summers, I saw Genevieve the other day. She's working at a counter in the mall. Her rich guy dumped her. I don't care, Stephen. I miss you, he blurted out, not the money. I miss coming home to someone who actually asked me how my day was. I finally looked at him, the man I had wasted 8 years on. He was a shell, and I realized I felt nothing, no hate, no love, just indifference. You didn't miss me, Stephen, you missed having a fan, and honestly? I prefer being the owner. I stood up and walked to the door. Oh, and Stephen? Yes? He looked hopeful. You have a smudge on your collar, fix it before the client meeting. It's not a good look for the company. I walked out of the office and into the city streets. The air was crisp. My phone buzzed. It was Ethan Vance. Ethan, dinner tonight? I know a place that doesn't have peeling wallpaper. I smiled. Sounds perfect, I typed back. I hailed a taxi, not because I had to, but because I chose to. I wasn't the girl who pinched pennies anymore. I was the woman who had walked through the fire and bought the flamethrower. The past was a debt that had been paid in full. The future was pure profit.